Hello, everybody. Welcome to another exciting episode of Jimmy's Jambox. We're here. We're back at it again, and we're going to get on into it. But before we do, as always, please make sure to like, subscribe, push all the buttons, do all the things. You know, I don't know where they are, but you do, and I trust you. With that being said, here's a quick word from our sponsors.
Organic herbs and botanicals, skincare and edibles, wellness for body and mind. The Brothers Apothecary. Fine teas and remedies. Ronald Records. From indie gems to classic hits, discover the heart of local music. With live shows all the time, up close and personal, and regular releases on their in-house label. Ronald Records. Supporting the community, one track at a time.
All right. Thank you all so much for watching. Again, shout out The Brothers Apothecary, Ronald Records, and Portland Water. Thanks for keeping us hydrated. And with that being said, let's go ahead and get on into it. Here is today's guest.
Hey, what's going on? It's your boy Mighty.
Hello. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And, I'm just going to say this for the sake of the show. Thanks for being the first person interview in the new setup.
Oh, come on.
Second episode to come out, but first person to do it. I appreciate you.
Fly setup, bro.
Yeah,
Fly setup.
But let's go ahead and get on into it. Tell us a little bit about, who you are, where you're from, what you do. Give us that, Tinder profile of your involvement with music.
All right. Tinder profile. Yeah, man, I'm a musician. I'm a writer. I love to say just a recording artist, all kinds of things. I create for movies and TV and, have traveled to other countries.
Mm-hmm.
Music has taken me all over the world, so I'm that, but I'm also just a regular guy trying to help his community.
Yeah.
Created a nonprofit, and so I'm also like a community pillar. I like to look at myself as someone who has always tried to, lift up the youth and give them opportunity. So aside from just music, it's a little bit of everything, man.
No, I dig that.
Yeah,
I dig that.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to stay focused on just the music for a second.
Yes, sir.
Let's go back to the beginning. What got you started into it initially?
So I actually started when I was 9 years old. I was writing raps. I was homeless at the time. So me and my mother, we lived in the back of a 89 Buick, and I used to write raps because my cousins were listening to hip hop. And
Okay.
I was inspired by Tupac and Snoop. And yeah, man, I just wanted to learn how to write them. And I would write on the back of napkins or envelopes and just things that rhymed. And then, around 10 or 11 years old, I started to kind of put the words together and really trying to rap anywhere I was. So if I was at hoop night or something, or at a community event, or at a youth center, my friends would beatbox or they would pen tap, on the school desk, and I'll just start freestyling and just going off the top, and they love to hear me rap, bro. So just kind of started like that.
Hell yeah.
And, it kind of gave me a place to repurpose my confidence. I didn't have a lot. I didn't have anywhere to live. I didn't have a lot of things in my life. But when I was rapping, I was confident. When I was, you know what I'm saying? I got to be mighty, you know? And so, that's kind of like how it started.
I dig that.
Yeah.
I mean, unfortunate circumstance, but it sounds like you really made something big out of it.
Yeah, I mean, that's how it goes, man,
And then, growing up, was anybody else, family-related musical at all?
Yeah, my uncle, so growing up, I was kind of like a village baby. I bounced around a lot. So my uncle is one of my best friend's uncles. But we would be in Vallejo, California a lot. And my best friend's mother was a manager at one point in her career for artists on Capitol Records. So there was a connection to the industry in a weird way.
Yeah.
And when we were really, really young, me and my good friend, we decided to create a group called Dynamics. And I think we were maybe 13 or 14. We'd go to the Bay, Vallejo specifically, Fairfield area.
I'm from Sunnyvale.
Okay, yeah. Come on, yeah. So a bunch of family down there, but he was an engineer and worked at a studio and was also a big part of the Bay Area rap scene. So he really, my auntie said, all right, you want to rap? we're going to send you down to Unk. We're going to see what you're doing, how it's rocking out. And we learned a lot of skills there, studio skills, how to rap on the microphone, how to, voice inflection, just delivery. I mean, you name it, right?
Yeah.
And
Get
then,
better at your craft.
Right. So he really taught us how to record, how to, because he's in the studio every day. And so from there, man, we got on the radio in the Bay as just this really young group. Young Drew, and I don't know if you know who Yuck Mouth is, but Yuck Mouth and Young Drew recorded at the studio almost every day. And Yuck Mouth named us Dynamics. Like, I rapped fast. My best friend rapped like slow, kind of like, soupy, And he was like, bro, it's like Dynamics. It's like Batman and Robin, And so Yuck Mouth actually gave us our name.
Hell yeah, that's cool.
So that was kind of a cool situation. So we were around a lot of already famous artists when we were young. E40 was a very close member of our family. And so there's a lot of times where we got great opportunities to perform and to try to do things with larger artists because we were connected, right? And we were pretty good. And we were really young. Then shortly after that, we got hired by the Sabin Community Center to do the Max, so the TriMet theme song. When I was 14, I wrote the whole TriMet theme song.
Oh, dang.
And so we put out a CD. They printed up 10,000 copies. They put us on the side of the bus in the Max, and it was called Chillaxin' on the Max. I was 13 years old at the time, and
that was a good campaign, though.
Right,
good campaign, though. Damn.
And everything paid for. The commercial ran on Fox for 2 years. We performed all over the city. I mean, you name it, I was probably there performing. And so it was a great opportunity. So I've been an artist since I was really, really young.
Yeah.
I signed my first deal around that time. So there were a lot of crazy things happening in my life. So, man, it was music kind of took over and gave me a voice, man.
Yeah. Yeah, I dig that.
Yeah.
Now, before we get into more of what you do with it in the present day, I do have a couple foundation questions I like to check in with everybody on.
Absolutely.
And this first one, it's one we ask early. It's one we ask often. It's definitely a crowd favorite. What was the first album you ever bought with your own money?
I love that question. Man, I think it was, I had to get my cousin to buy it, but it was with my money. My cousin was older. It was Doggy Style.
Okay, hell yeah.
It was Doggy Style. And it's because it was parental advisory. I couldn't buy it. It was at Sam Goody or something. But the one that I bought like physically me and I knew I could get it was Return of the Mac by Mark Morrison.
Oh, hell yeah.
The single, like when it with the handcuffs on the cover, like the whole... that's when they would put out like the instrumental and a remix on it. So you had like 4 joints or whatever. And you could put on the headphones to listen to it prior to getting it, so those were my first two.
Hell yeah, I dig that.
Yeah.
And then what was one of the first live shows you ever went to that was like specifically one you wanted to go to? So like you saw what was happening, you got the tickets, you went to it.
Man, that's a good one. Man, I didn't watch a lot of live shows as a youngster at all, really. There was one. It was probably E40. I saw E40 live, and I remember this is right when Sprinkle Me Man came out. Sprinkle Me came out. It probably wasn't when it came out, but it was when it was still booming. It still is to this day. But I remember everyone was waiting for him to play this song, and I was kind of off to the side because our family connection with him, got us to the show. But I told my auntie, I am not gonna miss the show. I'm sick. I'm not going to school. And I'm going to the show. And when Sprinkle Me dropped, the way the crowd moved, bro, watching him have command over 1,000, 2,000 people, something like that. It was just, that is where I think I physically fell in love with watching live performances and just in general, kind of like the intake. And then, later on in life, learning how to perform and do it myself. But it was just, that was the inspiration. I always think about that moment. It was almost like it was in slow motion.
Yeah, damn, I can imagine. Also, E40 is just an incredible individual. Like
Yeah.
as far as like what he's done for the community, what he's done in music, the amount of effort he's put into it. Like there are very few people that I think hold the same amount of standards as he does. So that's a really special one to be able to experience regardless of when it happens.
Yeah. He transcended. He really not a lot of artists can transcend time frames and how decades, generations. He's someone who has done that
very much
successfully.
So. Very much so. And even now, like there are I think every single time I see a track with E40 on it, I'm stopping what I'm doing.
I love it.
Like, I'm just like, you know what? I've got 3.5 minutes. I'm sure he's only got a verse on there, but we gonna hear it. Like,
I got time to
that is something where it's like, I will almost always put down what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Just I'm like, all right, what is he doing this time? And, he's got his format. He's got his tried and true approach.
Yeah.
But it's just so good.
It's always good.
It's just so good. And I've never heard a verse that I felt like he phoned in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I've heard some other big people where I'm like, all right, you were just doing this to do this.
He doesn't mail it in.
No. He has got too much going on for him. Also, he was one of the first people who I saw a picture of like their home studio.
Yeah.
And it was like better than any studio I'd ever been in.
Yeah.
He's
got a line that I love and I always say it. And I kind of got an impression if you'd like to hear it.
Yeah, please.
I've been doing this shit ever since Moby Dick was a goldfish. Come on, man.
Yep.
That's a line, bro. Like, I don't care what nobody's talking about. It's peanuts to an elephant. You know what I'm saying? E40 is the king of lingo, man.
Oh, for sure.
Shout out to Big Bro E40. Really. He's been a legend, not only in the community and in what we do, but also just in my life and just kind of, knowing the people around us. And fun fact, Cool Nuts is actually the manager for E40 now. And so that's a major step for the town. Part of a legacy.
That's gonna bridge the coast in a lot of cool ways.
Right.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. All right. And before we officially get into the now, do you have a defining moment where you decided you wanted to take music more seriously?
I think all artists do at some point, and they either decide to or not.
Yeah.
I think there was a moment. I quit for 2 years. I was on a television show called 106 in Park. And this is later in my career. I'm solo now and 20-some years old, and I'm on one of the biggest TV shows in the world. It's TRL of our time. And I win on this show. I go and do some crazy things in the 60-something cities in this country, performing on my own dollar, doing everything that I can to get out there. And my father's twin brother passed away during open heart surgery. And I quit making music for 2 years and got rid of all my gear, tossed everything out. It used to be in my bedroom, my studio apartment, but just in my bedroom right next. I'd wake up and have to do it, right? Like it had to be right next to my bed. And got rid of everything, and a good friend of mine hit me with this instrumental about 2 years into this hiatus. And he sampled, I sent him a voice message a couple years prior where it had me doing like this rhythm. And he sampled the voice message, and it's him yelling, "Let's go, mighty." And I just remember him sending it to me. He put drums all over it. He even sampled my drummer at the time, who was my best friend. So they went and made this record, this reference for me, and sent it to me. And it made me want to talk about life more and what all of the things. I felt like I had a story to tell. The music when I was younger was a little different, right? So that defining moment, I think, happened because it was it forced me to talk about things that I maybe wouldn't without music. And so I started talking about things in life that were different and my personal ups and downs growing up. And the song was called Victory. We ended up putting that song out, and that actually changed my whole career. That song was dedicated to people who have like domestic violence in their life, have suicidal, thoughts, and have dealt with depression and bouts of that, and also dealt with homelessness, drug abuse. So the song was talking about victory. What if you woke up and the day was a victory lap from the first breath? And so that's what the song was about. That really changed my life, man. I think if I wouldn't have had that defining moment, we wouldn't be sitting here talking about music, man.
Fair enough. Well, glad to hear it happened.
Word.
And let's go ahead and let's get on into you in the present day. We are going to get a super easy one out of the way. How'd you pick the name?
It's actually a nickname that my family gave me.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, my mom calls me Mighty.
All right.
Derivative of Mighty Mouse.
Yep, that's what I was gonna ask next.
Derivative of
Oh,
Mighty
hell yeah.
Mouse.
Hell yeah, he got it as the ice. I love that.
We dropped the mouse later on in my career, and people just called me Mighty, and I was a hooper. I still am. Not was. You never were a hooper. You were a hooper or not. And a lot of people on the court, I was really small, but I was strong on the court. And they were just like, it's like little Mighty Mouse. So Mighty just kind of stuck. And then what's crazy is I turned into, like a bigger, I feel like I'm 5'3". I like to give a little bit of, but my aura is 6'10". I feel like I try to carry myself very.
I will say, in everything I've ever like physically seen you in, you do look pretty big.
Right on, bro. I appreciate it.
That definitely translates well.
I turned into Mighty, which is kind of and that's just telling. That's God being like, yo, I got you, bro. Don't trip. You don't need to come up with a name. I got you.
Hell yeah. I dig that.
Yeah.
So did you ever have any like other artist names prior to that, or has that always been the day one?
There was a group name. So I think Mighty was always my name. Mm-hmm. People always wanted me to go by my real name, which is Matthias. So I have a pretty awesome name.
So it's actually not too far from your... Okay.
Right.
Okay, so there's some correlation in there, too.
It's not like Post Malone. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But the reality is, I always wanted to keep my name. I thought, no, that's mine.
Yeah.
And so Mighty just stuck and people could remember it. My real name is kind of hard to remember, or they can't pronunciate it, or whatever.
Yeah.
So I dealt with that a lot of my life. But there's a fun one. My group, when I was younger, the group I was in, we used to be called Young Thugs. So this is before.
Before Young Thugs.
Before. Yeah. So with a Z, like we drew the name. It was, you draw it in your binder.
Yeah.
The whole thing.
Oh, that's so funny.
I'd cut out little pictures and put them in. I'd take out the discs and the booklets and make the booklets and take pictures and be like, the whole nine, bro. Yeah.
That's amazing.
You're the first person I've ever told that. So
whoa.
We should have like
Jambox
a
exclusive. Yeah.
Yeah.
We have to get a little down at the bottom there.
Yeah,
That's really cool. That is secretly one of my favorite questions. Is always like, what were people like?
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever said this on the show, so I'll match you one. One of my early music names was Cornelius Clutch.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yo, clap it up for Clutch. Clap it up for Clutch. I love that name. I think that's where'd that come from?
So my nickname was Clutch.
Okay.
Like that was just
fire.
For applicable reasons.
Yeah.
I was always just the guy who was like coming through in the moment.
Yeah.
And then one of my coworkers and friend, she, because I at times have had a very large beard.
Oh, there you go.
And she was like, "You look like Yukon Cornelius."
Oh, there it is.
And at the time, I was trying to figure out an artist name, and I was like, "Well, I love alliteration."
Yeah.
Jimmy's Jambox.
Yeah.
And so I was like, Cornelius Clutch is a cool one.
I love it. And
then I found out nobody knows how to spell Cornelius. It's very chunky.
Dude.
It doesn't look good on any. It doesn't look good. And then later I found out there was a group already named Clutch.
Oh, okay.
And so I was like, well, none of this is going to work. But that was the one that I was just like, this is silly.
That was groundbreaking for Jimmy's Jambox, 700th episode.
Yep. Episode 700. I didn't even say it in the beginning. But we're not here to talk about me. We're here to talk you. Yeah. Now let's go ahead and let's talk about your writing process a little bit. And we're going to break it up into chunks, but we're going to start right at the beginning.
Okay.
So when you get inspired, you're ready to make a track.
Yeah.
What are some of the things you do to get a track started now?
I used to not be a fan of voice memos and stuff. Mm-hmm. When I was younger, I would just write out the idea, real wordy. It'd be a wordy idea. Then I would take out some of the words as I would move along. But now it's a lot of voice memos because I can do it on the go and I have a lot of things moving. So I have to be able to get things done and I can reference them. But I was always big on most of my career on not writing at all. So I would put the idea down initially and then it was gone. It was done. Yeah. And then I would just reference the paper whenever I wanted like a keynote or but I felt like creating on the microphone, punching and finding where you're supposed to be was you just find out here.
Yeah.
And a lot of my best music early on in my career was somewhat freestyle, somewhat kind of like off the cuff, So yeah, now I reference because of the workload that I have.
Yeah.
But a lot of creation still happens on the mic, so it's kind of a blend. But the original source and the original, process was, bro, just wing it, bro. Yeah.
Well, it sounds like you were also spending a decent amount of time like in studio.
Yeah.
So there was probably a lot of times where you were like, I've just kind of got something. Let me punch it in, hear it back.
Yeah.
Which, you know, like, especially earlier on, a lot of us didn't like get the, like, home studios didn't become a thing until like, you know, like 10 years ago, really.
Yeah. 100%. And I take advantage of that when I look back, you know, because that was we were blessed to watch these things happen. So yeah, winging it just made it feel more natural. And I was an overthinker, like a lot of people can be, right? And a perfectionist. And that allowed me to let go.
Yeah, because when you're freestyling, it's like you can only come up with the sentence at the moment.
Yeah.
And then you have to let it go so you can move on to the next sentence.
Yeah.
I dig that.
Yeah.
And then once you get a track finished writing, so it doesn't have to be like released yet, but you've gotten it down.
Yeah.
How long does it usually take you to feel comfortable enough to perform a track?
That's a great question. Anybody watching, if you're new to music, that's a great question. That's not a formidable. There's not a formidable answer. I think it depends on what you're trying to create. If it's really a performance song, there are some songs where it's like, man, this could be brought out during the performance. This call and response moment here, or you know, we can change some things about this record. So I think it matters what it looks like live and what you perceive it to be live, like before putting it on the stage. But the process would be, you know, I think if it gives you that, you know, it kind of gives you the chills in certain moments of the song. If the fluctuation of the record has really highs and really low lows, I think it's always great for performances. Yeah. Because then you can push and pull the crowd the way you want. And I perform with a live drummer and a DJ.
Oh, so it takes you a little more time to get set up anyway.
Yeah. So now we have to figure out where these components lie, right? And so then we start to remove some sounds or maybe move some things around and then figure it out. So the process might be different for me, but if it, you know, for you, I think that it's take it case by case. Yeah. You know, anyone watching, take it case by case.
Well, more just to kind of re-highlight the question, more how long do you usually take to feel comfortable enough that you've like memorized the track?
Oh, yeah.
For it to stick for you?
Absolutely. Probably, man, give me a week. Give me a week and I'm good. Really good at memorizing. The song bank's crazy. You know, 20 plus years.
Oh, so, God. Yeah, believe me, we're going to get into that in a minute. We're going to get into that in a minute for sure. Yeah. But before we actually talk about your catalog, I do want to pivot for just a second. Yeah. So, you know, in the realm of creation, in the realm of things you do, like you said, you are not just a musician. Right. You have a lot of, you know, you've worked with a lot of big names, a lot of big organizations. What does that realm look like for you? For somebody who only knows you more of your music, like what are some of the other like big primary things that you do as far in the world of like creation and production goes?
Yeah. So a lot of people have there's a major aura around sync licensing right now and creating for alternate spaces and soundscaping things like movies, TV, ads. I mean, you name it. Just consumption, right? What is that content, right? Every content needs some type of sound. And so recently in my career around the pandemic, I stepped into sync licensing and have been blessed to be able to create tons of different works with different companies. You know, I've even lost count. I'm actually signed to 10 different sync licensing agencies at the moment.
Interesting.
And I've worked, and some are non-exclusive, some are exclusive. Just depends on what the project is and what the agreement is. And I own 100% of what I make. And so, as we know, 200 points for each song, you know, with composition and with how you split it for the writers. And so it's really become a unique experience, very, very different than creating an album or creating songs for Mighty. There's situations that you're offering sounds for and a feeling for and a mood for. Yeah. So that is a very unique production piece of what I'm creating now for some of these brands. Gotcha. I've also leveraged myself by working with some of the biggest brands in the world, which is not something I was necessarily ready for.
Yeah.
But it just kind of happens. You're in the right rooms. You create the right sound. You never know who's listening, right? So I would encourage any artist at any point in time in their career, never be afraid to be a part of those rooms. You mentioned earlier while we were chopping it up that you've been in a lot of rooms. Maybe you shouldn't be.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
And I love that. I love that approach because, you just never know. And, I would encourage people to be professional, be very professional. I showed up early, and you know what I did? I also left late. I created 6 songs in one session. The next day, 2 of those people in that big old think tank session worked for 2 different companies in sync licensing. I signed to them the day after.
Hell yeah.
And they've landed some of the biggest songs I've done in my entire career.
Yeah.
And so they continue. The lifespan of music in sync licensing is much different than releasing music. It doesn't have just like this 90-day consumption period where then it kind of dies off.
Yeah.
These things are alive for 10 to 15 years and you own them. We're not fighting for ownership like in music, right? It's a different living space. So sync licensing, I've been blessed. And then also I make music custom for certain people, for certain things. I've done theme songs. I've done, the Seattle Mariners. I made a theme song for the Seattle Mariners. Just done thousands of songs in that regard. And so it's also something that I would encourage artists to go take a look at. Do your research and figure out where you could fit in, because this is for producers, writers, top liners, guitar players, drummers. You just never know. So
there's a whole website now where you can contract real people to make a part for you.
Absolutely.
So it's like you don't have to go and find, a saxophone player that's like down the road from you.
Right.
You just go and you're like, hey, I'm looking for this.
Yep.
And multiple people play saxophone can check and see if it's something they could do.
Yeah, like a favor for that. Yeah.
So you're getting real parts from real people now instead of having to like go on Splice and find the same sample that's been used by 100 people.
Yeah.
I dig that.
So, and I would just encourage too, like if you're going to create in that space, understand that you have to own everything. In hip hop, we struggle with the YouTube beats, right? We get cooked by the ownership, and we just get cooked, bro. And so know what you're doing too. Knowledge is power, especially in the hip hop realm. It's the most consumed, music in the world. So know what you're doing, and I think my story that we talked about earlier, being young and starting professionally early, helped me navigate these.
Yeah. You at least got privy to the inner workings of it when you're pretty malleable as a person.
Right.
And that definitely can go a long way.
Right.
Before we officially talk about your music, I'm curious to know, because, just on your Instagram, you've listed some pretty big names. Big, and out of all the ones you've done, is there any that like stand out to you in particular?
Yeah, man, there's some really dope ones. I would say working with the Portland Trailblazers was probably my favorite. The NBA is great to work with in general. I've done tons of stuff for the NBA, but I worked specifically with the Trailblazers, not DJ OG1. Shout out to my guy. And that's my that's my family. But I'm talking about the arena music.
Yeah.
When the Blazers come out, when the lights go black. And this, I soundscaped basically that entire experience. And so an arena of 20-something thousand people stopping to ingest this feeling is a song called Turn the Lights On. And at the time, I was really struggling with sync licensing. This song is actually one of the first songs I did with one of those guys I met at the session. So mind you, like I said, show up early, leave late, put in the work, right? And so I created this song. My lady, she goes, this song's going to be one of your biggest songs. And I go, really? She goes, yeah, this is going to be one of the biggest songs you ever made. I love this. She was right. It's one of the biggest songs I've ever made. It's made me a ton of money, but it's allowed me to pay my mom's cancer bills. And at the time, my mom was actively battling breast cancer. I did not know that she had not been to a Blazer game ever in her life. I am born and raised here. I had been with like the after school program and whatnot, the Wallace crew or whatever. I never knew my mama had never been to a game.
Damn.
So she tells me this. I take her to the game. She doesn't know that the arena... When I tell you, right before I said, Mom, pay attention to the music, you might hear something familiar. She's like, what? And mind you, my mom, she's going through it. And She looks up and she's singing every word. My mom is crying. She's like hitting her chest. She's like, and I'm like, the happiness, bro.
Mm-hmm.
The happiness, bro. We sat courtside, bro. Blessings to the Trailblazers for looking out for us.
Mm-hmm.
It was the most incredible moment of my life.
Oh, I could only imagine.
Success. It has all these different, asterisks next to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like what does it mean to you?
Yeah.
And it's subjective. I get it. Nah, man. That right there. A couple weeks later, she went to the doctor, and she was cancer free. I truly believe that moment, that joy.
Mm-hmm.
I think it worked out all the sorrow in her body, bro. It was one of the most incredible things that's ever happened in my life. Not even just music.
Oh yeah, I know that.
But by far. And if it wasn't for sync licensing, if it wasn't for showing up for myself,
Mm-hmm.
if it wasn't for showing up for my mother,
Mm-hmm.
being there for her,
Mm-hmm.
the benefits of that song and that moment, she pays no doctor bills because they're taken care of.
Yeah.
And now she's a cancer survivor.
Yep.
Because I think that joy and that belief, that moment, I think it had something to do with helping her overcome something inside.
Damn.
And I don't know what that was because I'm not my mom.
Yeah.
But
well, then you're not a doctor.
Right. Something happened,
Yeah.
man. And that moment was groundbreaking for me as a human being, but also something I'll never forget, bro.
Damn, that's what that in its own way is probably one of the most definitive moments
In life.
Yeah.
I like I'm saying, life.
Yeah.
Life, bro. Like, she was just, the pride she had, bro. She had her little first game sign, whatever they give you for the first game. She was like a little 12-year-old girl when she seen Blaze,
I'm going to be honest. I haven't gone to a Blazers game yet, so I didn't know they do that.
Yeah.
I'm
Come on.
super
You
stoked
need to
now.
go now.
Yep.
You're going to get all that.
Oh, yes, please.
But yeah, man, and we ended up doing that for 3 seasons. So we were a part, and they chose different songs.
Mm-hmm.
Again, this is different because they're rocking with a kid from the town. They could
Yeah.
go get Kanye West right now. They can go get Jay-Z right now. They could just use the song. They can license the song, but they decided to license
Mm-hmm.
with somebody who's from here.
I appreciate I've seen a lot of things musically that the Blazers are always kind of involved in because I interact with a lot of people who are in those realms. They have a really, really strong love for where they're at. Like,
Yeah.
it's really cool to see.
Rip City is a real thing.
Yeah.
And they go to the core with it. So shout out to the whole team over there. I'd never want to be on any, outlet and not make sure that I'm grateful, man.
Oh, for
they
sure.
could go anywhere, man, and so I'm extremely grateful and glad to be a part of the process and looking forward to working more. You know what I mean? So,
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for going down the road with us on that one a little bit. I just wanted to dig into it a little bit more.
Thank you.
But now I do want to talk about your music a little bit.
Yeah.
And so I jumped on Yield Spotify.
Okay. All right.
And you have a ton of music. It goes all the way back to 2010.
Yeah.
And your track record is solid, no pun intended.
Hey.
But what was crazy is that, like, obviously I could not listen to everything.
Yeah.
You have so much music, I would have to spend weeks.
Yeah.
But I did go through a lot of it. Like, I'm going to say I made it through at least half, guaranteed.
All right.
Maybe a little more than that.
Appreciate it.
But what I really appreciated, and I started with the earliest track, which I forgot to write down the name of, but that very first track.
Yeah.
And as time progresses, as you move through it, first of all, your style is tight. Like, your delivery, your approach, the way that you go about it, it's been locked in since the jump.
Right.
But your variety of music, the actual, like, range of songs you have, because I mean, you've got harder songs, you've got softer songs, you've got songs for inside, you've got songs for outside. Like, I'm going to stop myself from Dr. Seussing it a little bit here, but like, you just have this broad range of music that if you heard any of your tracks, you would automatically know it was you.
Right.
So to be able to have such a diverse catalog,
Right.
but a noticeable style, that is really impressive. That is something that, you have the years under your belt to have achieved that. You have the knowledge that, like, I was not privy to prior to writing this.
Yeah.
But it's really impressive to me, your catalog, because it doesn't, like, some of it feels more of the time it came out, but there was not a single track that I was listening to that I was like, well, I get it.
Right. Yeah.
All of them have
Yeah.
something. So
Yeah.
I think your catalog is really, really interesting. And I hope it's something people check out more as like a full thing to really kind of understand the range of sound that you have.
Right on, bro.
But I am curious to know though,
Yeah.
out of all the music you have available,
Yeah.
what are some of your favorite tracks to perform?
Oh, I love to perform, bro. Performing is what took me on live television, took me all over the world, like not even making music at first. Performing. I can perform my ass off. Like, that's my bread and butter. You know what I mean? So I like anything that is intense. You know? I got this new joint called Pray for Away. Fire. Live, it's fire. I performed it for the first time at the Star Awards for Hip Hop Week in Portland. I was the headliner for the Star Awards, and that track, nobody had heard it yet. It wasn't even out, and they went crazy. I almost crowd surfed. I didn't know about it. I'm getting a little chunkier, you know. I eat everything I see, but probably Pray for Away for the new records, just because of that essence it has. But probably my favorite to give to the crowd is a song. I'll give you two. There's a song called Time Bomb. It's old. It's from way back. I still perform that today because of how dope it is. It's got a tick in it. It goes tick, tick, tick. Time Bomb. Yeah, I'm ticking like probably that one. And then a song called Upper Left. Upper Left is one that we didn't put on Spotify because of some sample issues. But Upper Left was a record that really changed my career as well. Talking about Portland, talking about the Northwest, we call it the Upper Left. And so when I dropped this record, we toured the country, we did some crazy stuff. And that song, people rap the lyrics. I don't even have to rap it. So that's probably one of my favorite too, you know, so...
Hell yeah, I dig that.
Yeah,
I dig
man.
that. Well, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Now I want to take a moment and I want to kind of zoom out. I want to look at kind of more music as a whole.
Okay.
What are you listening to right now? What are you taking in? What are you finding inspiration in at the moment?
Okay, yeah. Fun fact, rap is actually not my favorite music. I love R&B. I'm a sucker for a love song. And my favorite artist of all time is someone called Musiq Soulchild, neo soul artist from way back in the early 2000s. But I actually just listened to the new Leon Thomas album. It's great. I'm inspired by love and heartbreak because I think that there's something in that all genres and every human being can attach to. But when it comes to hip hop, when I like to create the dichotomy of someone like a Tupac, where you could do Ambitions as a writer, but you can also do like Dear Mama.
Yeah.
You know, so the newer stuff I'm really digging on in hip hop. I'm really digging on I'd have to say, obviously, the Kendrick GNX was crazy, bro. Like, very well done. His production was so easy. It wasn't overproduced. I do feel like Kendrick can be overproduced at times.
Yeah. Kendrick can be over everything.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
You know, he is the min-max master when it comes to the max side of
Dude.
things.
So, I mean... I really enjoyed the ingestion of that album and how seamless it felt. But I've really been digging on T Grizzly lately. I really like his drill sound. And his song, Trauma Therapy or Traumatic or Post-Traumatic, I think it's called. Super dope. I don't know. I'm kind of all over the place, man. I listen to some classic rock too. I like, you know, so what's new is probably that T Grizzly and that Leon Thomas, a little bit of that Kendrick probably, man.
Oh yeah, I dig that. All right, now before we move on to the next part, I've got one last question to go.
Yeah.
And this is probably the densest question in the interview.
Yeah.
But we talked about, you know, your experience with music, the actions, the reactions. But when it's just you and music, one-on-one, what does music give back to you?
That's a great question. I used to say that I learned how to love something that doesn't love back. That's why I'm able to love unconditionally. And I think music taught me that. I do think music loves you back. It's just in a different way. And so to identify what that is, I would say it's the as a creator of music, it's the process of finishing something that is that identifies the feeling you had inside or the sound you heard in your head, which is a cyclical, very victorious feeling. That could be chill bumps on your skin. That could be excitement. That could be joy. High heart rate, whatever, however you want to. But I think it's a very dense answer. I think that there's levels in which things attach themselves to me. Some songs as a musician, if you know, that you won't release because it's just not what it's supposed to be yet. Or you miss the window of the time when it should have released. A lot of musicians sit on a lot of records and they don't see the light of day. Kind of like an artist when he does something, not everything is in the gallery, right? So I think there are songs that don't necessarily reach the humans of the world that do different things. Maybe they reenact or make me feel things of moments in my life that weren't so happy or weren't so this or that, and they help as therapy or they help in a different way. On my new album, I actually have a record called Asthma, which I actually have asthma, but it was a song that I wrote about domestic violence that my mother dealt with when I was growing up, and we actually reenacted an actual scene of domestic violence. You can hear the muffle of the microphone and the physical altercation. You can hear it. And when I played it at a listening party a couple months back, everyone was frozen because it makes you feel like you're in there and you hear the physical altercation. And then it goes into the song talking about how it feels like I can't breathe, you know, that life is sitting on my chest, and so that feeling is much different than the joy or the victorious kind of, right? But it's a therapeutic vibe. It's something that sometimes those songs make such an impact in other people's lives that they're necessary to be in the world because consumption of them is a tool. It becomes like, how am I supposed to garden if I don't have a shovel? Or if I don't have a rake, or if I don't have gloves. Sometimes songs just give you the tools to figure out your garden, And I really truly believe that this new album of mine is filled with records that are about emotions and situations and circumstances I've never spoken about. And I've learned as I've gotten older that this is necessary. This is my burning bush. I need to figure that out, right? Yeah. And so, 3-part album. It's called Buick Boy. And it talks about homelessness, domestic violence. It talks about drug abuse. Talks about paranoia. The rabbit hole of paranoia of a homeless youth who has nowhere to go and is scared to let anyone know because I had confidence, but I didn't have a roof over my head. So, I think there's tons of things music can make you feel and what it does for you. I know for me, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for it. And I'm forever indebted to music for doing that for me. And just blessed to be now, somewhat successful and I can kind of create what I want to create now, man.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah. And when you put the new album out, come back and do a tuned in episode where we basically, I'll have you send in early. We break, I make some notes. We break down the production of the album as well as like the intention behind the songs.
Fire.
Yeah.
Fire. So, it's called Tuned In.
Yep.
I love it. Like a tuned in episode. I get it.
Yeah. So please, I'm leaving that here so that you can remember it for later. But yeah, please bring it back. I would love to dig into that with you.
Yes, sir.
But now we're going to go ahead and we're going to move on to some hypothetical questions.
Let's get it.
Yeah, and for these, sky's the limits. The questions are all made up, so the answers are allowed to be as well. But this first one is pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
If you could work with any one person, the only requirement is they have to be alive.
Yeah.
Who would you want to work with, and how would you want to work with them?
They have to be alive? Ty Dolla $ign.
Oh, okay.
Ty Dolla $ign.
And how would you want to work with him?
I'd want to work with him on an EP and have him executive produce. Really unique person. I could choose a lot of people. There's tons of people that are still alive. I was going to say Eminem, but
fair.
I don't know. Ty Dolla $ign has this interesting dynamic to him, production-wise, that I think nobody talks about, and he just has an impact And I don't know. Yeah.
Hell yeah, I dig that.
Yeah, I think it'd be very soulful. It'd have a different type of essence to it.
Very much so.
Yeah.
And then subsequently, and this might be a little bit of a tougher one, but who's a local artist that you're aware of that you haven't gotten to connect with yet, but you would like to?
I have not worked with. I have Win. So Win. I actually know her from a long, long time ago. I met her at America's Got Talent and had a few different sit downs with her to teach her how to write bars. So that would be dope to like work with her now because I was there a long, long time ago.
Yeah.
Just as like a mentor kind of vibe, you know? But Amine would be a dope one. I've worked with Mike Capes, worked with a lot of people, Swig Mandela, all them. But
shout out Swiggle.
yeah, shout out Swig.
Yeah.
Shout out Swig. That's the bro. But yeah, probably Amine and Win.
Okay, hell yeah.
Immaculate. I just did a song with him, so I guess that's out. But
Fair.
Yeah.
And then for this next one, like I said before, sky's the limits, and it's pretty literal in this sense. But if you could perform anywhere in the world, and you wouldn't have to worry about crowd access or building stability or power, it's guaranteed the best lineup, guaranteed the best show, and it doesn't have to be a venue. It could be anywhere. Where would you want to perform?
We just talked about this. I think Red Rocks. I think Red Rocks would be crazy, bro.
You know, funny enough, my dream for the show was always to host an episode at Madison Square Garden.
Oh yeah.
Tony beat me to it, so Red Rocks is where I'm shooting for next.
Okay.
I want to do an episode of this show.
The Garden is good too, though. I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
The Garden. Or I was in Italy, and there's a refurbed arena in Italy where you can perform inside of like a ruin, bro. I don't remember the name of it. It's in Rome somewhere, I think. Crazy, like, cause I'm Italian and Mexican, but I'm like going to Italy was just like an eye opener for me.
Yeah.
And that venue, I don't know how to do it, but that would be fly too. You know
I dig that.
So like, are you not entertained?
I was gonna say, I'm sure you could make it happen.
Yeah.
When you do, let me know. We'll follow you out there and do
Hey,
something with it.
Fly.
And then to wrap up the hypothetical questions,
Yeah.
if you could get one more album from anybody, they could be alive, they could be dead, they could have not put out an album in 100 years, could have put out an album yesterday. Who would you want an album from?
I would want an album from, the old Eminem. I want an album from the old Eminem.
Yeah.
You know, like Marshall Mathers, bro. Like the original one. Not Marshall Mathers 2, not the Marshall Mathers LP 2. No, man. The old Eminem, like the one that was not afraid to press everyone's buttons.
Yeah.
He had something that in that moment that was just, it was so different. It was so different and groundbreaking in more ways than one. And I could use, you know,
Hell
you
yeah.
could go back in time.
Yeah, just find one in the vault.
Yeah, like
They're like, we couldn't put this out before, and we don't know why we're putting it out now.
Right.
Hell yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Well, Em, get on it. Let's see what we can do. All right, but with that being said, we're going to go ahead and start wrapping this up. What can we look forward to between, let's say, now and, what are we in, March? August.
Yeah. So again, the release of the 3-part album Buick Boy, that is going to happen throughout the year. So maybe the first or second act will be, you know, around in the next couple of months. And then just a bunch of content. Follow me on Instagram, ITZ Mighty on everything. But yeah, tap in, you know, a lot of music is going to be coming out in the sync licensing realm, which still reaches Spotify.
Yeah,
it still moves around in the nucleus for streaming. So whenever I'm posting about something or sharing it, and in order to stay tuned, that's how you stay locked in. You'll know about what's coming out, and you know a bunch of art. I also do art, but hopefully, like there'll be an experience-based show that will be around Act 1 or Act 2 a private show that you can go to if you subscribe to the album. So,
Hell yeah.
You know, there'll be some interesting and unique experiences, but solely the album Buick Boy.
Hell yeah. Well, definitely looking forward to that. And I know you already kind of did it, but go ahead and look straight at your camera for this next one. Tell everybody how they can find you.
It's Mighty on Instagram, all social media platforms, ITZMIGHTY like the mouse, man. Mighty from Portland, Oregon.
Hell yeah. And then any other plugs, any other shout outs, anybody else you want to put on while you're on here?
No, man, I'm good, man. Jimmy's Jam Box, man. You know what I'm saying?
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. All right. Then with that being said, I've got one last question to go. But before we do, I'm going to steal the camera for just a second. As always, y'all, please make sure to like, subscribe, push all the buttons, do all the things. You know, I don't know where they are, but you do, and I trust you. And one more shout out to the Brothers Apothecary, Ronald Records, and Portland Water. Thanks for keeping us hydrated. And with that being said, the final question. And this is entirely up to your interpretation. But in all of music, what is an album you feel is more on the obscure side? So it's a bit of a deep cut. It's one not a lot of people would know, but it's one you think everybody should know.
That's a good one. I would say, I think a lot of people know it, but they don't understand it. And that's To Pimp a Butterfly. I think it was necessary for Kendrick to do it for his sanity. I think if we don't have that album, we don't have anything from Kendrick right now.
Fair.
I think he goes into a hole forever.
Yeah.
You know, I really do.
Pulls a Frank Ocean.
Yeah, just leaves forever. So I think To Pimp a Butterfly is something we're going to look back at, and we're going to find more about it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
There's never a day that I don't, whenever I sit down with it, where I'm not just like, oh.
Yeah.
Oh. That's like The Cool by Lupe Fiasco.
Yes.
That is an album that every single time I've ever listened to it, I've walked away going,
Yeah.
how?
Yeah.
How did I not see that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
J. Cole has some of those too. These little side, For Your Eyes Only, that recent one he did, he's barring the heck out on these, bro.
Yeah.
Like, he's going crazy and no one's talking like that. Like, he really did his thing. So I just think To Pimp a Butterfly really gave us that in this culture. And we needed it too, but I don't think we'll realize how much until later on.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
All right, but with that being said, we're going to go ahead and start wrapping this up. Man, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I appreciate you having me, man.
Yeah. And this has been another exciting episode of Jimmy's Jambox. I'm Jimmy.
It's Mighty.
And we're signing off. Later, y'all.
That's a wrap.
This is not a podcast. This is a show.
Keep jamming.